Hi everyone, this is Jo Burnett from Go Get Sober. This is a vlog about my experiences living life sober, and this particular vlog is about my Saturday sober this weekend, where life threw a load of stuff at me, and I just noticed how different it was dealing with all of that stuff sober than it would have been when I was drinking. So what happened was, I got in the car first thing in the morning. I'm currently dog sitting for a couple of people in a village near to me, and I wanted to pop home. So I got in my car and I started driving, and about 20 minutes into the journey, I realised I had a flat tyre, so I pulled over. And I pulled over thinking, obviously, oops, this is bad news. Phoned my insurance, so I thought, oh well, it'll take a bit of time, but I'll get it dealt with. Phoned up the insurance, and I thought, oh well, they've got to come along and deal with it. They told me that my MOT was out of date, and I didn't have a current valid MOT. Now, for those of you who don't live in the UK, for a car to be legal on the road, it needs an MOT, which is basically just they just check the car is functioning and that all the relevant bits on the car are functioning in the correct way in order to make it roadworthy. And if you don't have a current valid MOT, it means your insurance is invalid, so you're not covered by your insurance. So I phoned my insurance company to say I've got a flat tyre, and they said we can't help because your insurance isn't valid because you're not currently covered by your MOT. So I thought, oh, and I literally did not know what to do. And I sat there for about 5 to 10 minutes. Usually I would have called my other half, but my other half is away, and he deals with car stuff. So I just literally didn't know where to turn. So I went completely blank and thought, what am I going to do? And I sat there and I sat there, and then I thought of my other half is in the car industry and he has contacts, and I have a phone number of one of his contacts. So I decided to phone his contact, which I did, and she suggested I phone so-and-so who own a bodywork place. And so I phoned them, and they said they would get a couple of guys to come out and help me change the spare. Then they took me to, which they did, I had to sort of sit around and wait for half an hour or so. Then they took me to a MOT and tyre garage, basically, who would sort out the MOT and do the tyre for me, which they did. They introduced me to the guy who was really nice, really helpful. And anyway, he worked on the car. In the meantime, they took me into town because I needed to sort of hover around for 3 hours while the guy did the work on the car. So I hovered around in town and I went shopping. I used credit cards because I was in town and I had nobody to see, nowhere to go, so I was just hovering. So I bought magazines, had coffees, had lunch, and I did have a lovely time. I'm just wincing because I spent money on the credit cards. But I bought sensible stuff. I didn't buy extravagant stuff. I did buy sensible stuff. So I'm justifying it to myself that way. So I bought some sensible clothes and sensible boots that I needed to walk dogs and stuff. And I hovered around in town. And then I walked, because I had a 20-30 minute walk to get back to the garage to pick the car up. And when I picked the car up, it was all done. Lovely, that's fine. And the guy who did it for me said he would put me onto their database so that he would email me each time my MOT needs renewing. So it means that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now, as I was walking away from town and I was walking back to pick the car up, I thought how different an experience that would have been when I was drinking. Because to start with, I was up bright and early. It was about 9 o'clock when I was driving, when I'd left this house where I'm dog sitting. It was about 9 o'clock as I was driving towards town. And in my drinking days, it's very doubtful I would have been up at that time. If I was up at that time, I'd be feeling pretty crap, and I'd be dreading any social interaction, and I'd just want to get to where I was going. I would just want to get it over and done with. I would want to get through it, and I would be looking forward to the end of the day where I could get back home, safely ensconce myself in my own little world and crack open the G&Ts and pour the wine. So that's where my mind would have been as I started this journey. When the flat tyre incident happened and I had to pull over, I wouldn't have been firing on all cylinders. So I would have gone blank, as I did go blank, but it would have been a real struggle for me to kind of work things out and to get to the point where I actually discovered, yeah, I had phone numbers, I had people I could call, and to be animated enough and with it enough to have engaging conversations with all of these people, so that I developed rapport with them, so that they were willing to help me, and so that I could get the best result I could get out of the situation. When I was drinking, I would have been sluggish, I would have been slow, I would have come over perhaps a bit weird, I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't have felt as good as I felt in dealing with it and getting it all sorted as well as I did. Then I obviously drove the car to get the tyre sorted, and I followed these guys in their van, and they introduced me, and that would have been a real anxiety inducing situation for me when I was drinking, because I would have had a hangover and I would have wanted to avoid social interaction, because that would have made me anxious, and I would have been worried about having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, and I would have been worried about the way I came across. I would have felt kind of remote and distanced from the whole situation. I would have felt paranoid and self-conscious about how I came across and what I was saying and how I was behaving. So that would have been a whole nightmare for me, dealing with that incident, dealing with having to talk to those people. Then had to get in the van with the guys who'd come out to help me change the tyre, and they drove me into town and told me where to go and what I was doing. And again, doing that with a hangover in my days of drinking, getting into a van with people I didn't know and being driven into town would have caused me some anxiety. Then being dropped in town and having 3 hours to spend just with nothing to do on a Saturday, which is a really busy day in town, would have filled me with dread. I would have been anxiety ridden. I don't actually know what I would have done. Well, I couldn't have really done anything other than stay there, but the whole experience would have been really awful. I mean, I would have just been trying to escape the crowds, trying to escape the panic. As it was, I just enjoyed it, and like I say, I enjoyed it a little bit too much. I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is that when you're sober, you deal with what life throws at you so much better. You're clear-headed, you have more energy to deal with things. I was more myself, so I was just, okay, it was a bit of a spanner in the works and it took up half a day, or it took up more than half a day, but you kind of don't let it get to you. And you just get on with things, and you just deal with things, and you chat to people, and you're still animated, and you've got energy, and off you tootle around the town, finding enjoyment in something that otherwise would have been a chore. And just the difference between that and when I was drinking, that would have been a terrible experience for me. And guess what, folks, because I'd gone through such a terrible experience and it had been a nightmare, I would have been driven even more to drink in the evening, and I would have drunk even more, because I'd been like, whoa, I've got through that, I need to drink to recover from it. So just a little vlog to summarize the difference between being sober and drinking, the difference in how you handle the kind of crap that life sometimes throws at you is absolutely, what's the right word? It's just dramatic. The difference is dramatic. And I just knew at the end of the day on Saturday that the way I would have dealt with that when I was drinking would have been totally different, and I would have ended up with a really stiff G&T in my hand probably earlier on in the day than was my normal routine. So yeah, just reassuring you that life gets better and better and better, and that dealing with the crap life throws at you is so much easier, and you can be so much more successful at it when you're sober. So that's it from me for today. Let's go get sober.